Hello and welcome back to the Beards and Business Show. I'm your host, Anthony Pacheco. Today I have Charlie Frohman on with me. Charlie is a lobbyist with the National Health Federation, which is the oldest health freedom organization. He's also the executive director for American College with the Health Trustee in DC, strategic alliance officer with Your Freedom, affiliate for empowering benefits, advocate at Frohman Consulting in the DC, Richmond, and Virginia area, as well as a formal social studies teacher. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anthony. I'm excited to talk about business and beards.
That is so awesome. Well, hey, we're going to jump right into it. Let our audience know a little bit more about who Charlie is. So if you could just walk us through your personal journey. What was it like growing up? I think you said Pennsylvania and then into Virginia. So just kind of walk us through that as from your personal journey.
Sure, Anthony. Well, starting now and going back, I'm a libertarian yogi entrepreneur. That's who I am. I like finding ways to make money, helping people do good. I had helped John Mackey at Whole Foods start conscious capitalism in the mid 2000s. I teach Kundalini yoga. I sell a Forbes featured disruptor in the individual and small group health payment world. And like I said, I'm the lobbyist for the world's oldest health freedom organization. So I really want to add value as I see it in this world. And it's a natural result of my life. I grew up, in a upper middle class family in Erie, Pennsylvania. The Frohmans came over from Germany in the 1850s with that giant wave after the revolutions over there. And they ended up in Sandusky, Ohio. And one branch of the Frohmans ended up in Broadway, professionalizing that market at the turn of the last century. And the other branch revolutionized paper packaging. And I come from the paper packaging branch. And in Erie, my dad was a pilot at Erie Airways, flying local businessmen around the Great Lakes region, Pittsburgh, that kind of thing. He had a race car, a small race car, the little dirt racers, and we would go to Canada, just around Lake Erie by Toronto and Buffalo every summer for vacations. And when I was 8, we moved to Suffolk, Virginia, because my dad's older brother was getting into real estate, and he had married the niece of the former governor of Virginia, Mills Godwin. That's a pretty well-known name in Virginia. And that's where I really grew up, from age 8 through high school in Suffolk. I did pretty well academically. I was on our academic bowl team, and, there in Tidewater, Norfolk, Virginia Beach area, we had an academic bowl challenge among all the high schools. And we came in, I think, 3rd, and that was fun. I wasn't the smartest of the 4 kids on there, but I could answer the obscure questions no one else could around history and geography. And, I got into tennis. So that was my main sports after, baseball, little league. And I did pretty well in the Tidewater region. Not the best, but, in the middle, not good enough for college. And then high school band, I played saxophone, and, I got onto the regional band. So there are those things that, everyone has in their past growing up, where if you made a pretty big achievement, it sticks with you. There's always a few episodes that, yeah, there's something pretty cool there. Went to William and Mary, the nation's 2nd oldest college, where Thomas Jefferson went. It was founded in the 1600s, so it's 4 centuries old. I was a government major. I started out pre-med, but I realized as I wanted to have a lot more fun to balance all that serious study, that I had to find a balance. I got into a frat. I got into karate as a hobby, and we did some pretty hardcore things, going to Nags Head, the North Carolina Outer Banks, in the wintertime to go punch waves and climb Jockey's Ridge, this big sand dune. We were run by this old school Japanese samurai guy that hardly spoke English. And I really enjoyed that hardcore kind of version of karate, and no pad sparring. And so I started to realize that I was a maverick in a lot of ways. I wanted to do the hardest core version of this kind of style of martial arts. I wanted to get through college in 4 years while also having a good time at my frat. And then I got a job waiting tables like you, Anthony. I looked at your bio at the local Colonial Tavern, where waiters can make pretty good money as a student. I didn't rise to manager like you did. I just wanted to make my money and, have that balanced, good time, serious income kind of life. And then, like you, I got into door-to-door insurance sales after college because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a government major because reading and writing and politics came easy, but I wasn't quite sure what to make of that. It was just, cramming and get through college without any real serious look at my future career. I was kind of a drifter. Not really a drifter, but just, wasn't really ready to start the adult life yet. So I, responded to an ad to sell combined insurance, and I ended up doing well. I just applied the training and did what they said, and was taught some new sales in Virginia for a few months. Got flown to somewhere in Connecticut or Massachusetts for management training, but within a year, with a buddy, I just moved to DC. Let's try this politics DC thing. That was my major in 1990. And I just hustled, dropped my resume with every politician on Capitol Hill. And for some reason, this Pennsylvania Republican hired me. I wasn't even sure if I was a Republican. I actually voted for Dukakis in '88, who was the Democrat nominee in college, just because I guess I was, a little bit brainwashed by the professors and wasn't a huge fan of Bush after Reagan. But I asked my dad, what party should I go for? He said Republican. So I did. And I wasn't too enthralled with using government to lord it over people's personal lives. So I didn't really get into that aspect of the GOP. And for the Democrats, I wasn't really enthused with their government solves every problem kind of knee-jerk start to every problem discussion. I just thought things were a bit deeper than that. And then I saw as a staffer on Capitol Hill in the 90s that, money kind of runs the show. And I was becoming libertarian. And by accident, Hillary, Bill Clinton's wife in the early 90s, was going to try to reform healthcare. And my later colleague at the Cato Institute, Doug Bandow, put it best. What Hillary Care was and what Obamacare later became was basically, this is the best image I've ever heard for government reform of healthcare. It hasn't been topped. It's two things: shoving everyone into an HMO or some variation of managed care, and capping it with Medicare price controls. So basically, you're squeezing every round peg into a square hole, however the phrase goes. You know what I'm talking about. And that is what healthcare reform is. All the big players want to have insurance control it through some management. You're paying a third party you take care of it. And by the way, we're going to give you a budget. It's a Medicare type of budget, and that's all you got to spend. So you got to ration somewhere.
Sure.
And so Hillary Care forced me as a young Republican congressional staffer to learn healthcare. I didn't know anything about it. No one else did either. We all had to learn in a hurry. And so the Republican I worked for was the representative for the capital of Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. Therefore, the capital is usually where all the special interests live. So I was visited by the lobbyists for the hospitals, for the insurers, for pharma, every angle of healthcare where the money is. And I learned healthcare from the special interest. But given my growing skepticism of government as a cesspool for the highest bidder, the special interest, I was also becoming libertarian and starting to learn from the scholars what they wanted, which would never go anywhere because there's no money in doing the right thing, as most people should know by now. That's why nothing ever gets done, because there's no money in doing the right thing. So I ended up learning about the medical savings account, and I had switched to a new congressman, and our office became the prime sponsor of the what was then called the medical savings account. And I had arranged a hearing with the now defunct research committee where I brought up the utility that runs Virginia's electricity program, Dominion. They used an early version of a savings account for their employees. I brought up a TPA, a third-party administrator. I didn't know anything about that, but it seemed unique. They were trying to bypass insurance for bigger group companies. My congressman was friends with Monroe Trout, who ran the biggest nonprofit hospital system. And his son happened to be Tim Trout, who was a senator for the William & Mary basketball team, the guy I used to have fun with back in the mid 80s. So I learned from him. He was a super high level insider. So it was interesting to go along with the special interest, but also to be following these scholars going, we've got to empower patients. We got to look at empowering the individual market over this group market. And so that's my early health experience and my early childhood. I can keep going, Anthony, or
no, you're doing great. Yeah, I mean, I think we got a pretty good understanding of who you are, and I think that's really what we were looking for. You're very deep in right now on a couple of pieces that we'd like to dissect out a little bit more. And so, growing up where you grew up kind of put you in a place that allowed politics to become semi-natural, because it's a very political area. In that Virginia Beach area, you've got government entities stationed there. You've got a lot of politics going on. Capitol Hill is not too far away, and so I think that's really great. And then kind of how you segued from one side and how insurance kind of led you full circle back into healthcare was kind of interesting as well. So as we kind of talk a little bit more in this journey down through the political landscape, you talked about getting to work with governors in the very beginning, and how at the Capitol, this is where a lot of things came to begin with. So you were beginning to be lobbied to, correct? So they were coming in to lobby. And so can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, that was what was forming what Doug Bandow, my later colleague at the Cato Institute, characterized as that two-part reform, hiring third-party insurers to take care of it through management, whether HMO or managed care or Obamacare, as it eventually became in law, and capping it with a budget through Medicare price controls. You can control it. Here's your money. You decide who gets screwed and who siphons off the wealth. And so it was all those special interests lobbying me that wanted a piece of the action, where I realized I was an idealist, becoming libertarian. And I had to add this as well, because I continued having a good time while working on Capitol Hill. It's kind of a frat house. We're all in their young 20s. We're figuring out whether we're staying there or moving off to law school or getting our MBAs and starting families at some point. I found yoga to help me personally become a better person, stronger physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I started to learn about alternative healthcare. And
what year was that?
That was around 2000. So I had left Capitol Hill. I had become a lobbyist myself for various trade associations in the finance area. Also accidental how I became the lobbyist for the mortgage brokers during a class action crisis, and then the federal credit unions, which ties into the sharing I sell now, because one of the ways I explain what sharing is to people is, do you know what a credit union is? And they go, of course. Do you see much difference between it and a bank? No. Well, when you get into a sharing community, do you see much difference between it and insurance? Not really. Exactly. So just as people can deposit funds and get small loans at a credit union in a professional looking building, just like with a bank, just at probably a bit more affordable rate, same thing with sharing. 1 million people now use sharing for the major medical. not just insurance. You're still paying a monthly fee. There's still limits to it. There's still an out-of-pocket upfront cost. From my experience with people dying of cancer, the sharing community is better than insurance because they're more they're more of a partner in helping you decide which therapies to go to. And we can get into that later because you asked about my transition. After lobbying for the finance groups and becoming the government affairs associate director at the Cato Institute, the world's largest libertarian think tank in DC, in the early 2000s, I went out on my own and had a bunch of nonprofit clients, including Greg Scanlon's Consumers for Healthcare Choices. And then I had a pain doctor client as well as a natural health client. So one was pro pharma, but was Orwellian in that I can tell you about the pain controversy and how a fifth of the country is suffering long-term searing pain without legitimate access, sufficient access to relief from the opium from the poppy plant, which for thousands of years has produced pain relief for those in real pain. And then with the natural health clients, I've learned how pharma pretty much uses FDA as a tool to smother the natural care that a majority of Americans want. And that can lead into a conversation about how we fix group health, because I'm working with several folks, how to insert not just DPC, but more integrated entry, which is the long-term play. DPC is good for now and in the long term, but folks aren't going to just settle for a pill in the long run. They're going to want higher quality primary care. And with the COVID hysteria, that's going to really expedite that transition, which is exciting that I'm very much part of. But, as you mentioned, I left briefly to go teach in DC's inner city, social studies. I do love history, politics, civics. I love teaching. I teach now, I think, when I sell people healthcare, when I educate folks about what health is. It's very political. If you get into any discussion of what health is, even high-level benefit advisors are going to argue and let their emotions get the better of them and condemn you if you don't have the right answers. So
great point.
So from the conscious capitalism experience I had with John Mackey at Whole Foods, I realized there's no avoiding differences in emotions in politics. We have to find a way to rebirth this world, these governments, this health market in a way that accommodates differences of opinion and preferences for healthcare. We're not going to agree on what healthcare is. So I want to meet fellow disruptors and advocates and idealists who want to co-create this new health market that accommodates consumer demand. And that is the conversation to have. And after helping Governor Gary Johnson run for president over the past half decade and running coalitions in all the states on all the issues, not just healthcare, I've gotten to know a lot of players in markets and activism in all the markets. I'm known as a connector. I have a lot of connections in all the markets. And by accident, one of my fellow activists was selling this sharing plan a few years ago, and I needed more income. And I sold combined 20 or 30 years ago. And over the past several years, I've gotten into commercial insurance sales, got my license, doing the continuing ed. And so my life now is earning income from commissions, selling sharing as opposed to insurance, selling a novel money doubling account for out of pocket, working with Dr. Arshad, who got Nelson Griswold's Technology Ascend Award for the Cash Appointments app, and different groups that are really facilitating the cash market. So I want to upgrade patients as cash shoppers commercially, which has a political effect of opening the market, and then doing direct activism to really push reform to give people the bigger, wider array of health care that they want. They don't want to have their healthcare limited by politics, which is what happens with the cartel, whether commercial plans or whether what's available, period, in healthcare. It's all politicized. And, I like earning income, changing that. So that's my life now.
Well, you sound very passionate about it, which is great, because it's always great to be passionate about something that you're doing. And you're speaking to a very hot topic issue. The just healthcare in general has always been a pretty hot topic for, past 30 years, really, as we've just seen the premiums be driven up, and even more over the past decade, with the instilling of the ACA. But as you speak about cash pay pricing, I would like to dig into that a little bit more, because I have my own experience with cash pay pricing for my personal family. How I negotiated my wife's emergency room bill from $2,200 down to $220, not even knowing what I was doing, just having a good business IQ and understanding when faced with that specific problem, addressing it in a business fashion. So if you could just kind of speak to that, what are you doing as far as helping others to negotiate a cash price?
Well, Anthony, whether for liberty in politics or upgrading patients into price-sensitive shoppers in the commercial space, we both know that in both those markets, we're not in the majority.
Correct.
Potentially, with all the independent thinking and traditional American values, and even basic human values, the way we are, we have the majority, but it is up to us through these podcasts and marketing to seize the opportunity. And there are those stuck in avarice who don't want that to happen, because through politics, you can make your life easy, just gumming up the works and keeping out your competitors. But how we make that cash shopping work is twofold. One, what we have learned at Empowering Benefits over the past several years is that cash negotiation at this point is too hard for most people. So what we have had to invest in is our concierge shopping assistant service. So when I educate folks to, save money and upgrade their plans to what I'm selling, and other folks have good novel solutions too, I emphasize an 800 number. If you have an emergency, go to the hospital, but if it's not, and call us as soon as you can. But if it's not an emergency, call us to allow our professionals to help you shop for that cheaper prescription overseas. We work with pharmacies overseas to help you find that cheaper imaging, Dr. Dickerson screen imaging, to help you find that cheaper specialist. For the American College of Healthcare Trustees, Dr. Levian's group that I help, we're having a big event in Baltimore right before Halloween. We'll have Kelly Webb's exclusive surgeries people there. They are one of several who have tried to crack that nut of quality. We know
Sure.
the Keith Smiths offer prepaid bundle pricing, which is great. That's part of the solution. But Sanjay Prasad at Surgeon Quality will tell you, but have we figured out quality, the right surgeon at the right time? Brad Willems, ADX Therapy, Dennis Patterson's hospital filter, healthcare blue book that we use,
Sure.
as the best we can right now. They're all good, but that's an upside opportunity for folks. Just continue figuring out quality. It's not, I don't think anyone has cracked or solved completely yet. I know a lot of folks are getting close to it. But that's the issue with cash, is to make sure you have a good Nordstrom's type shopping assistant to do the work for you. Because you figured out how to negotiate a confusing hospital bill. Patsy Wrightsman does it professionally for folks.
Right.
Sedera was founded by Dr. Tony Dale, who did the Caris Group hospital negotiation for Samaritans for decades. At this point, you need professional help to hold the hand of the cash shopper. So that's how we've done it. And then sharing, for the expensive stuff, for the upfront out-of-pocket cost. I like the health savings account for the sophisticated person. For your blue collar, the big business, DPC, I think is critical. And then we also have the money doubling account, the prepaid visa, which is good. Make sure you have something so you don't avoid your teeth cleanings, your chiropractic adjustments. I like naturopaths to check your blood for nutrient deficiencies, or urgent care or checkups at an allopath primary care. I like all of the above. But a lot of folks are worried about the out of pocket because it does delay care. So I'm not dogmatic about HSAs, but I do see HSAs as a key tax shelter for those who can use it to build $100,000 for retirement when you will be hit with out of pocket. And then I do recognize the value of DPC or even zero out of pocket arrangements for groups. So, that's where I'm at. And then, the lobbying side, I have Congressman Gomer on my monthly Zoom this Friday for folks who want to learn how to take more direct action to insist on their right to choose their health care and not be mandated for participating in experiments to keep a job, or to suffer novel telecommunications antennas near their house or kids' classroom without any legal right to set back these towers, or to retain access to supplements without FDA coming out with a rule pretty soon that's going to bankrupt every supplement company that isn't owned by pharma. There's a number of issues politically that we need to tackle, even in mainstream health reform. Certificate of need laws that hospitals use to keep out competitors. That's a huge one. Hospitals are becoming dangerous for mothers and for anyone that will have to accede to certain medical treatments in order to get care. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. So I am working with a lot of entrepreneurs in every phase of healthcare. And I have a weekly Freedom Hub webinar that hosts these disruptors every week for 3 years. We haven't missed a Wednesday. A lot of people that you and I know, because you're right. I am passionate about this. I'm motivated. And I like meeting others who are equally motivated to make money doing good. We should all, whatever market, we should all be following our passions and making money from it. And that's tough. It is tough to make money on your passion. And that's where coaches come in. People who have done it should give back and help the rest of us, because people are suffering. They don't want to just stay in their office. They don't want to go back to work. They want to have more telecommuting opportunities that they've got used to during COVID. There's a lot of flux right now and where we are and where we're going. And I like to consider myself as one of the folks involved with the players who are doing something about it. So.
Yeah, whether you choose a side or not, you're on one, right? And so if you just by default don't choose a side, you've chosen a side. And if you're willing to step up and do the right thing all the time, the definition of integrity, doing the right thing even when nobody's looking, and you can find a way to make money doing that. Those are the things that you should go and do. And so, sometimes it is difficult to step out knowing, hey, what we're doing right now isn't right. And so we definitely want to encourage people to have courage, I guess, in face of adversity. There's so many things that they can get involved with today. And I think that's where a lot of our society doesn't really see. It's too easy just to plug into a system that's already created. It's been conditioned to work that way. I don't have time for this. I'm too busy trying to make a living. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to just get my kids to school, get to work so I don't get fired, so I can pay my bills, so I can do it again tomorrow. And, being in that position, which majority of Americans are, it makes it so difficult to focus on that next thing. So we need people to lead us in those ways. So we really appreciate what you're doing, because you are working for the average American working person.
I think I am. And because you're right that most people through TV programming and fear mongering are convinced psychologically that they are stuck and have no choice, and have to, follow their bosses and what the mainstream approved expert mouthpieces say is going on. I don't begrudge that. We really can't worry about them. They'll come when they're ready. Everyone is here, I think, working with God on their plan, and that's fine. You and I and others, it's our challenge and our job to figure out how to fix the market in the world and humanity. That's what we care about. So one of the things I'm doing on Friday's Zoom with the National Health Federation, I have Dr. Charles Benz announcing a project that we started a while ago on how to use the growing market of integrated care to transfer into health freedom advocacy. Because he has hosted on my webinar a year ago, how to coach your doctor. When you yourself are self-diagnosing because your allopath has no clue how to fix your chronic disease, which is the real epidemic in this country, how do you coach your doctor to work with you on trying different ideas of how to boost your health? So if we do have more integrated care in big group plans where a lot of innovation happens, you and I know through Rosetta that it's the big group plans sometimes that are the change leaders. If we can add some integrated care along with the DPC, the patients in integrated care educate themselves. In cash pay, they educate themselves how to save money. In doing so, they learn about alternative care. People who learn about alternative care learn that there are artificial barriers to that care. A lot of rich people go to Tijuana for cancer care. They go to Germany. They fly to Merida for teeth growth, like my aunts do from Austin. Commercially, change is happening through integrated care, through cash pay, those two things especially. And then it gets to the specialists that are too scared to seek out cash patients to learn how to live outside the hospital, where they find they're no more happy there than they were dealing as a businessman running their own multi-practice clinic, or going through the credentialing rat race to be in the insurance network or to have privileges at the hospital. Dr. Arshad's app is aimed to help the specialist with an independent mindset join us to seek more cash patients so they can become more independent and be happy, like the DPC's people are. They're happy,
Sure. Absolutely.
Happiness makes a better doctor, I think.
Absolutely. Makes it better anybody, right?
Yeah.
Happiness is kind of the key. It doesn't matter if you're the employee at a corporation, the doctor at a facility, or your own standalone company. You need to be happy.
Yeah. And how do we Uber everything for those corporate cogs in the wheel? Great, smart employees that are desperate to keep their income because of their expenses, but dream of starting their own thing. The gig economy. So that's what we're doing October 29th. Is we have exclusive surgeries there. We have green imaging there. We have the Cash Appointments app there. We have me there. We have Carl Schuessler there, our mutual friend.
Oh, Carl,
yeah. So it's going to be at the nice home outside Baltimore of the former head of Baltimore's Medical Society. We all have one foot in the mainstream and one foot in the disruptive cash market, and a smaller subset in the integrative natural healthcare market. Some of us are active in politics because of what's happening with the Great Reset, the technocracy, the draconian orders from on high that are making it difficult for us to work, live, shop, or travel without agreeing to participation in the experiments that we're resisting. There's a lot on our shoulders.
Sure.
And you can't just be a commercial disruptor and saying, I don't like politics, because you may want to ignore politics, but politics doesn't want to ignore you.
That's right. It's a value bomb right there. Absolutely. And we will put links to your show in the show notes as well, as post on LinkedIn and our social platforms, your upcoming webinar, if that's okay.
Definitely. Tomorrow we've got a former president of the Association of American Surgeons and Physicians, AEPS. She's also with America's Frontline Doctors and a former advisor to the Navy Research Advisory Committee. who will tell us the latest on this COVID stuff, if that interests you. Friday's Zoom will have the congressman introducing a bill guaranteeing your right to have choice. So you never can be coerced. And reach out to me through Anthony. Let's get together. There's no win-lose dynamic. It's all win-win. We have to help each other. You know, if we want
Absolutely.
this, if we want this dynamic benefits market that allows for the latest in healthcare to trickle down into the benefits, which will help all of us make good money doing the right thing. Let's all help each other.
Yeah, I heard, I stole this phrase from a friend of mine, but he said, it's not us versus each other, it's us versus the cartel. And if we would all literally come together and promote each other, work together, like with these type of situations, I'm going to put all of your bio links, every way to communicate with you in the show notes as well, and it'll be posted everywhere. Please reach out to Charlie. He can help out in a number of ways that can bring light in a very dark place. I think that there's a lot of darkness. We had David Sleepak on a while back, and he was talking about the cloak of darkness in the healthcare industry, and there really is. And so,
my former partner, Dave Sleepak.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in our space, if you're a commercial disruptor or an activist for people's rights to be that maverick doctor, to try new things, we're all going to know each other.
Sure.
And we have
Absolutely.
to help each other. Yeah, Sleepak's
awesome. Yeah, great community of people. And so we really appreciate you sharing as much as you have so far. We could probably go on for a couple more hours pretty easily. But we want to get into another segment of our episode that everybody loves talking about, and it's the beard. And so you've got a great looking beard going on there with mustache. And so if you could just tell us a little bit about that. Tell us when you started growing your beard and mustache or facial hair in general, and anything along the way that maybe you felt like you couldn't have one when you were, in the political realm and where you worked, and just kind of a little bit about it.
Thank you, Anthony, for asking that question. And thank you for risking having me as a guest without really knowing too much about me. Let me ask you a question, Anthony. Was it just sort of a gut instinct after I commented to, was it Ryan Miller's interview?
I believe so.
Better interview me quick before some corporate meeting or my wife makes me shave my COVID beard. You invited me right after that. Was it just a feeling, or what made you take a chance?
Well, it was the comment itself. I ran a couple of LinkedIn polls. One was, how do you feel about facial hair in the professional environment? Should it, it was the four options are like clean shaven, beards. I don't care. Just get the job done, and as long as it's clean shaven, groomed, well groomed. And then I ran another one as to why you don't have facial hair, and one of those were my wife or a significant other wouldn't allow it, and my job won't allow it, and or fear, right? And so I don't remember the exact ones on that, but you kind of hit on two of those topics, and I was like, now here's a guy that is in politics, has a spouse that might not love the facial hair or the length of the facial hair, I'm not sure, but man, I want to hear his story. And I'd seen you on LinkedIn a few times before already, and so I wanted to reach out.
So let me answer your question. So you recall that, because I was a fast living Capitol Hill staffer in the 90s,
right?
I had to get control of myself. And there are a variety of ways for a human to grow up. And luckily, a former fellow coworker of mine, bless her heart, is a prosecutor of some kind in Philadelphia now. So she can't be too public being a friend of mine because of my maverick ways, but she's lovely. Told me, you're coming to yoga class with me, Charlie, or Frohman. So I did, and I loved it. And then I got into other styles of yoga, and then Kundalini yoga is my style. And you'll see it with Russell Brand's podcast. He's
right.
growing his hair. And you'll notice with Kundalini yogis, they have a lot of hair.
Hmm.
And the reason is that style of yoga comes from a Sikh, which is the fifth largest religion. It's Northwest Indians in the Punjab. They're called the Jews of India because they have 2% of the population, but 20% of the wealth. It's a
Got
really
it.
neat culture of the Sikhs. They're kind of between the Hindus and the Muslims. And where the Punjab is, people don't know this, was an old Greek colony during the Persian times. The time right after Alexander the Great, his empire going to Asia, he left a bunch of Greeks there where Turkmenistan and Afghanistan are now,
Hmm.
which is fascinating because if you think of that area of Asia, meeting China, India, and the Russian steppes, a lot of Greeks mixed with the locals there. And eventually they were all eliminated and it became more of a Turkish area, an Arab area. And then around the 1500s, the Northwest Indians developed Sikhism, which is a cool religion. They believe in many paths to God. They're very open and tolerant, great warriors, warrior saints. And, you know, I was into karate in college and I love the hardcore nature of Kundalini yoga. We would do meditations all day. I've been to India. I've done a 5-day long meditation with 10-minute breaks every half hour, 4-hour break for sleep, and a few 3-hour breaks during the day for eating. Chanting a great poem from this Sikh about what is yoga. And, you know, I've done some, I love these crazy hardcore things that you can do in life, you know, whatever it is. It molds you and it makes you realize there's a lot you can do. Like Governor Gary Johnson, who I got to run for president, he climbed the tallest peaks of every continent. You know, I think most people do have a couple things they do which are pretty hard.
Hmm.
Other folks won't do, and so you know you're part of a unique tribe. And Kundalini yoga is kind of unique because not everyone wants to chant, not everyone wants to do long meditations. And we have a lot of very difficult exercises. It's not like gym yoga, that series of poses that most people know about in
Hmm.
gym yoga classes. Nothing like that. And you know, coming from a Sikh, you know, they don't cut their hair. You know, they have their hair tied up here and wrapped in a
Hmm.
turban, and they don't cut here. And the reason they don't cut here because in yoga, this is the man's moon center. Notice a man rubbing their chin when they're trying to think. They're doing that because the hair is an extension of your nervous system in yoga. And this will help neutralize your thoughts to give you a good response so you don't react. The purpose of meditating, which I do every morning along with a workout, is to neutralize myself so I can be an even keel during the day. Without this routine I have, and other folks have different routines, could be prayer, could be running, whatever, it doesn't matter. That kind of activity balances your hormonal secretions, it balances your pituitary, your thymus, your endocrine system is the key to your health. And you know, having hair here is important for a man. So to all my clean-shaven friends, including Carl Schussler, who just shaved a great ZZ Top beard, I will never forgive you, Carl, for having the best Southern beard. Now he's clean-shaven, and now he's Carl the corporate shill now. I love you, Carl. I love you, Carl. But you shaved a great beard. So for the past 2 decades, I haven't shaved all the way. I have a couple of times for my wife, but I try to, you know, this is a bit longer than it usually is. I try to keep it trimmed. But, you know, I'm serious about, I believe the yogic lore about this moon center of the man and the value of having hair here to pull to help me neutralize my judgment to perform at a high capacity. So I don't think you probably have heard anyone else use that as a justification for a beard.
Not at all.
But, you know, yoga is the operating manual for the human. Anyone who does it realizes, this is pretty old stuff. It helps. I don't see it as a conflict between any other path. I think it is a complement to anything else you want to do, even religion. But definitely to me is medicinal.
Mm.
And so that's why I have the beard. When I first had it working for a think tank, the Cato Institute, I got some snarky remarks from higher ups because that's when I was getting hardcore into the yoga style, and I was also the lobbyist for the biggest think tank in the world for liberty. So I was hosting all the Capitol forums and interfacing with all the politicians for this think tank on all the big liberty issues. I was on C-SPAN a lot, and other major media, and I had a beard. And I was going to, New Mexico for hardcore yoga events. And after that, I pretty much was working on my own, so I never had the corporate pressure. I have felt compelled to trim it when it gets too bushy. So I do suffer from some fear and drive to conform to the man. I do think the 1900s, when all our presidents had these big bushy beards, was a great time. I love hockey playoff season with all these playoff beards. And I do want to see more beards. I think it changes people. When you're clean shaven, I think you're a different person. When you have a beard, I do think it affects you because of my belief in that yoga lore behind it, hair being an extension of your nervous system. I think men with it are a bit more calm and not so rushed. And anyway, so that's my beard story.
That's really interesting. Now that you've said that, I keep doing the pulling thing just to experience it. And it's funny. My wife said she's never seen somebody groom their facial hair as much as I do, or touch it. And I have I've only been growing my facial hair for a little over a year and a half now. And before that, I was always clean shaven. And I love it. Like I don't want it to go anywhere. It's going to be a part of me for as long as it stays on me. If it starts falling out and looking patchy, I might have to do something. But like my head. But I'm hoping that this is where it stays. And it's interesting that you said that about the emotional side, because somebody told me that a beard is a representation of like safety. Like people feel safe around somebody with a beard. It is definitely more, a masculine feature. But the feeling is that that person can be trusted, and that, you're tying that back into when we remove emotion from our decision making and it becomes logical again, our decisions change very rapidly. Because I don't have any preconceived notions, or I don't have any past experiences that I'm tying into it that are negative nor positive. And therefore I can think logically. I can take those pieces of what has happened and then apply logic back to it. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. I consider it extremely important for men to learn this ancient yogic lore, which is ancient human lore, and the natural importance of the beard to the male human. And I want folks to take it seriously. I want them to take a risk, grow it, see how it feels. Think about that nervous extension. And to meet people with beards, get to know it, get more comfortable with it. We could get more into it. There are people that think that the powers that be put in their programming not to have the beard to dumb us down. So, we don't have to go into that conversation, but I think it's part of the solution. Integrated care, getting active and more demanding of what politicians you let take your money and tell you what to do, what happens in your schools. I'm active in all the issue areas because, for 3 decades, I've had professional experience in all the issues. I can tell you about education. I got my master's in teaching high school history. I know about student-led learning, the promise of better schools if we let entrepreneurs take a crack at it, just like healthcare. What we've done to our money, as healthcare professionals, we know about finance and how that's gummed up from the top. And everyone
Sure.
knows from the COVID hysteria that things are a bit dark, like you mentioned, and as Dave Sleepak mentioned. The Great Reset is happening, whether you like it or not. All the politicians are repeating the mantra, build back better. Fine, let's do that, but let's do it on our terms, on human terms.
It's a good value bomb right there dropped. I mean, that's really deep. And I think that we'll take some time to think about that for sure. So we appreciate your journey through the beard, your professional journey as well as your personal journey. And I think you've given us a lot to think about. I do have one last piece that we kind of talk about, and we've done a little bit of this throughout the episode, but this is kind of your opportunity to tell us what you are working on, what you have going on. I know you have some upcoming events that you'd like to talk about as well. This would be an awesome time to let us know how we can help you and support, and again, how we can find you as well.
Well, in the show notes, I'm sure we'll have links to my
Correct.
3 events coming up. And tomorrow is a good chance to join my weekly Freedom Hub webinar, where twice a day on Wednesdays, I have entrepreneurs and activists in all fields of liberty and, corruption in the 4 o'clock episode. And then in 7 o'clock is more health focused. Please join me on that as we meet the disruptors and leaders of change. My version of health change revolves twofold around cash pay. So anyone involved in trying to boost that market of price sensitive shopping, reach out to me. Let's cooperate and brainstorm. Also inserting more integrated care into healthcare. People want that. They're not going to settle for whatever the powerful cartel interests want to give you. Consumers always run markets. If you want to have a supply and demand curve, you have to respect consumer demand and meet it where it is.
Of course.
So integrated care and cash pay, if that floats your boat, reach out to me and let's brainstorm. I have a bit of the answer. You do too. We all do. Let's figure it out and try something new. And then for those of you who have had it up to here, whatever the pointing part is with the COVID hysteria and the top-down threats and draconian orders, I'm a leading guy in that field. Reach out to me. I'll tell you how to get involved and have effect. You can join my Friday monthly webinar with the National Health Federation with Congressman Gomert and how we can pass legislation to demand our right to control our health decisions. We shouldn't be forced to be guinea pigs. We are humans. Let's have some self-respect. We're creatures of God. God didn't create us to be guinea pigs. And finally, for the mainstream health people that know we have to do better, reach out to me for the American College of Healthcare Trustees. There's a bunch of mainstreamers there that do regular mainstream stuff. There's a few people like me in there who push the envelope on cash pay, integrated care, or activism. It's a safe space for you to be. They deal with upping the ethics of the healthcare market. So it's a safe space for all of us to meet together, even if we don't agree. Our event in Baltimore right before Halloween. So those are the 3 basic areas to meet me. The commercial disruption on cash integrated, the political space, and then the mainstream space with hospital types, insurance types, who have a bit of an independent streak that, let's take where we are now and grow from there. So
sure.
Don't feel like you can't meet me if you're not on my team 100%. We work with each other despite differences.
Yeah, I think that's a big key point. When we have somebody that is very strong in their beliefs and values, a lot of times it's hard to approach those people. I think that a lot of times anybody that's strong in their beliefs are strong in their beliefs because they are confident in their beliefs, and they're more willing to hear somebody that has an opposing view or might not be specifically aligned with them. Because they are confident, they can hold on to their emotions a little bit better, and it doesn't become a battle or a fight as much as it is just hearing two different sides, understanding where that person actually is and helping bring them along. And I think that this is the one place that we can do a lot of work at. All right, is not being emotional, not coming back in from an idea of fear that you're uneducated and you're going to be exposed, and or that you think that the other person is uneducated and you're going to expose them, as much as it is coming in from a standpoint of let's be open, let's be honest, and let's move from there.
Exactly. And the beard helps. The beard
Beard
helps
help.
with being approachable. I think I'm less intimidating and with less emotional energy. I put off people less than I could otherwise. I think I would hope I am. It's a work in progress.
Well, ask those that are around you, right?
Yeah,
They know it's the best.
exactly.
Well,
What
awesome.
is it in the Bible with Jesus? A prophet everywhere except with your hometown people. Have you noticed that? The hardest people to convince are your loved ones. Sometimes the last people to believe your medicine.
Oh, it's
Which
it's
is kind of funny.
absolutely true. They see you like every single day. They know you more intimate than anybody else. And so, a prophet is basically, I think the same as a prophet is, sorry, lost my train of thought there too. Yeah.
But you get the point. You'll
Yeah.
be honored elsewhere, but not here.
Not here. Right. Never around the people
know.
that you know.
Exactly.
That's great stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much. And again, we'll put everything in the show notes. Great, great time. And we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was fun.
Absolutely.